Oh, here's my cat just come to
Yeah, I heard.
join. Hello, Sparkle, come on in. I hope YouTube doesn't mind Sparkle.
You should be fine. Is it a boy or a girl cat?
Sparkle's a boy. He wears the name quite well. Yeah. We didn't name him Sparkle. He's a rescue cat. YouTube can see you next time. One moment.
Yeah, we'll get started with your opinions on different training tools. I'm excited to see what you think about them. I am sponsored by a couple of these tools, so I have my own biases, but I'm excited to see. What you
I'll
think.
try and be extra harsh on those then.
Yeah. It's like AG1, so.
I mean, I would have it right down under the BCAAs, right down at F.
All right, so our first training tool is the classic, the hangboard.
Yeah.
Now, I figured this was a gimme, which is why we started with it, where you'd be like, of course it's useful, you need it. But is it something you need?
Well, that's a good way to start, actually, because it's not something you need. And I can just go back to my own history. I mean, I got up to climbing 8C, 14B, without using a fingerboard or a hangboard.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we always call them fingerboards, but no, I didn't use one for a long time. I just bouldered, and I mainly just bouldered outdoors with some indoors as well. But and then laterally a little bit of 45-degree board when my local climbing wall in Glasgow got a 45 board, but I don't remember there being a fingerboard in the climbing wall, and I certainly never used one until 2005. So I got up to 8C without it. So
that's why I know that's how people climbed before gyms were a thing anyway and stuff. But it's just crazy to me that you could only climb outdoors and get up to like 14B, like 514B or something like that. Like I know I know it's to you it seems weird. To me it seems the opposite, where it's like you gotta like hike to the spot. You gotta get all the stuff out, and you're gonna be tired after so it's like doing that on a regular basis to train, whereas you could just go to the gym and have like a really good training routine. You can do like 2-a-days. To me, as a spoiled indoor climber, it seems like wild that you would get that strong from just like only climbing outside.
Well, there are plenty of examples of climbers who've climbed to a really high level who don't really train. I mean, Chris Sharma is probably the most famous example of. I mean, I've only met Chris a few times. I sort of know about his climbing in the same way that everyone else does through the internet. But, I mean, he's famously said that he just went climbing for long periods and didn't really go near a climbing wall. So like I said, I got up to 8C, French sport grade 8C, and climbing maybe on the boulders, maybe around Font 80 plus V12, without the fingerboard. And then in 2005, I actually got a single campus rung, put that in my doorway, and I started fingerboarding 6 days a week. Now, I did have a big jump in strength the summer that I did that, but I think that's because I already had spent so many years climbing outdoors. My technique was pretty good. You have to have all the ingredients in climbing, and also I think my finger strength was good. But there's something about mixing up training methods, and we'll probably come to this through this episode, where it's useful to pick from a variety of different strength training methods, and that will give you a well-rounded strength. But for most climbers, I would say it's an excellent tool, and they probably should be using it. I mean, it has many things going for it. One of them is that it doesn't wear your skin out. So, you can, when you've been doing a lot of climbing on plastic, especially if you're doing a lot of route climbing, and you're wearing your skin out a lot, then any strength training on wood, it's just really nice to train on. You can still pull hard, and you're not limited by sore skin. And it's very safe.
Makes sense.
So for people who are not that long into climbing, it's a great way to kind of get on that ladder of finger strength, because all you're doing is like hanging and then pulling as hard as you can, hopefully lifting your body weight off the ground, but in a very slow, controlled manner. And if there's any problem at any point, you just put your feet down immediately. And
so would you say then that the hangboard is, as far as training tools go, where would you put it?
It's got to be S tier. It is like the most convenient, simple, effective, accessible training tool for climbers from their first few months of climbing right through to elite level. So it's really got to sit at the top. But just to re-emphasize, it's not a need. It's an extremely useful tool, but you still, if for whatever reason you wanted to train strength another way, then you still can do it.
Campus boarding.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So I think that campus boarding will definitely sit a bit lower in the tier list. The campus board has going for it trains that plyometric aspect, that power development, rate of force development, to be able to snap. So power has a speed and strength and force component. So power is force times velocity. So you are training that ability to get your muscle fibers to fire in unison very quickly and coordinate the muscles into a movement that's very fast and reactive, and also to stiffen the connective tissue so that there's less elasticity that slows everything down, if you like, because it has to take time to stretch. So that's what campus boarding is doing for you. And I suppose there is a technical element in that it does give you kind of confidence to latch onto a hold very quickly and feel like, in your mind you're thinking like, don't let go. You're like, snatch, grab it, and don't let go.
Yeah,
and that there is a technical element to that. So that's the upside. The downside, the main downside is it's dangerous. I've injured myself a good few times on the campus board.
Same. That was my first injury ever on the campus board.
Yeah. So it's definitely one to be a bit more careful with in ramping up. I think ramping is one of the most important words that anyone can learn in the whole world of training. Ramping just meaning a progression of load.
Yeah, gradual instead of like.
Yeah.
No, I'm really stubborn. I have always been very stubborn. And one of the first things I remember I did I was like, I want to get into rock climbing. It looks so cool. I saw every time I watched a cool game show, the guys who always impressed me the most were he's a professional rock climber. And they would just like hang by one arm. And I was like, you have to be a pro climber to hang by one arm on a pole. I was like, you have to be a god. And so I went to the gym and they gave me the briefing and I was like, what's that? And it was the campus board. And the guy was like, I would say like climb for at least a year before you hop on that. And I took that as like, you're not strong enough. I didn't take it as it's dangerous. And so I got on like immediately. So like the first month I was climbing, I was on it and I was trying it and I didn't engage my scapula like at all, so I'm like hanging like just fully like shoulders pressed against my ears and like trying to go up, and I just like my back got all messed up and like I couldn't like lay down right and stuff. I don't know, it was terrible. Yeah.
Oh god. Yeah.
So he was right.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
So would you say for campus boarding then, as a training tool, I will say campus boarding is my favorite training tool, so go a little easy on it, because I think it's the most fun thing. It's got the numbers, it's like a little video game. You try to go like...
I know, but that can be, you can also see that as being part of the problem, because it's like, it's always constantly tempting you to do more than you maybe should.
Yeah, and it's like not the most useful training either, because you're not using your feet at all.
Yeah. Well, so for all those reasons, let's have it as a C.
Okay, that's good. I thought you were gonna go lower, so I'm happy with C.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'd be pushing towards D, but you've encouraged me to give it a bit of a higher score.
I feel like Adam would. I've seen Adam do quite a bit of campus boarding, but he also clearly has a dislike for anything that doesn't involve footwork because he thinks it's like a waste of time. But I've seen his routine. He like wakes up in campus board, so he he definitely does it a little. All right, we'll move on to our next tool. 4x4s.
4x4s, yeah. Not something that I've ever done myself, although I have done almost the equivalent. So
just not intentionally like a 4x4.
Well, I guess 4x4s, if for people who haven't heard of them, I mean, my understanding of what a 4x4 is in popular climbing culture is when you have a boulder problem or a series of boulder problems that you just link together with no rest. So you do one boulder problem, jump down straight on another one, and so you've got 4 in a row, in order that you ramp up the number of moves to, like, so let's say 30, 40 moves to make an anaerobic endurance interval. And then you would do several sets of those. Yeah, I think
it's supposed to be like that power endurance. It's like you're not on this really long, steady route. It's like hard because it's a boulder, but you get... The way I've seen them is pretty much exactly how you described, but it's you do a boulder 4 times, but you take 30 seconds between each go. So you do it 30 seconds, do it 30 seconds, do it 4 times, and then you take, I want to say, a 3-minute break, and then you pick another boulder and you do that again. You do that. That's like the regular guy version of it, but I was always under the impression that was like the best power endurance training.
Well, you're ahead of me because I have no idea what's the best endurance training.
Well, clearly it's not that important. Like, if you haven't done it, you're good enough to prove that it's not necessary, which I know we said the tools in general aren't necessary, but if you're not doing 4x4s, then clearly it's just a preference thing at that point.
Well, I mean, I've just spent the last month like projecting a sport route. I haven't done sport climbing for years actually, but I bolted a couple of sport routes near my house, and so I've just been working this power endurance 14B, and so
wow.
I've been doing like lengths of sections of it repeatedly on the rope. So I've effectively been doing 4x4s on a rope,
yeah,
but just not in quite such a formal way. And then the lengths have got a little bit bigger.
If you're climbing enough, you're going to end up doing some type of 4x4 or power endurance anyway. I guess that makes sense, especially if you're stubborn and you don't take recovery, and you're like, no, I got to try it again, and you know.
So I suppose the important question is, does it matter whether you do a 4x4 or whether you do a continuous circuit of the same number of moves? And I'm afraid I don't know the answer to that. But it may be, you may be able to reach a satisfactory guess by thinking about your own strengths and weaknesses. So if you're better at the long end of stamina, you're more of a stamina endurance-y climber, then possibly it might make more sense to do something that's more bouldery. So more like a 4x4 where you're doing harder moves and shorter intervals to get at that area that you're weaker on. If you can actually respond to the training, I mean, this is where training gets a bit complicated. On the flip side, if you're more of a boulderer and you really struggle on long pitches and you're just getting very, very pumped, it might make sense to do a bit more of the long end. But you might have to shift and adjust your training as you're actually doing it, as you realise, oh, I'm responding to this, so I'll keep doing more of it. And then you'll hit a point where you're not responding to it anymore, and then maybe you want to shift focus and do something slightly different.
So you think 4x4s then, effectiveness then?
Yeah, I mean, they're still effective. It's just like they have to judge their effectiveness, they have to be compared against other forms of circuits. So it depends, but let's put them smack bang in the middle. Let's put them at B.
Ooh, they beat Campus Board. What do you think? I AI generated this guy. I typed in miserable climber, and this is what it came up with.
Well, he's still upright, so it can't have been that hard a circuit.
Our next one, this one, I don't know if you've even heard of or not. It is Synthol. Do you know what Synthol is?
No, I'm afraid this is news to me.
Synthol is an injectable, I believe it's a gelatin that you put in your arms, and it makes them look bigger. And so people do this, and I was thinking, if you put Synthol on your forearms, got really big forearms, maybe you send burden.
Well, I mean, yeah, certainly could be good for your Instagram following, but that's probably about it.
Yeah. That's what matters. This guy looks healthy, though.
Oh, you reckon? Yeah.
Yeah. This looks like a cumulonimbus cloud right here.
Yeah. I think let's keep that fairly low down on the old.
I'm surprised you've never heard of that. That's crazy. It's like it was really big in like I think Russia or just the God, I don't know. Is Slavic okay to say anymore? But I was gonna say the Slavic side of
sure. I know what you mean. Yeah.
The Eastern Europe, I think is what they call it. I'm Ukrainian. My family's from there, so I can say it. No,
maybe,
that's how
maybe that guy is like he is an Eastern Bloc. That's the definition of that guy.
Yeah. If he had an Adidas tracksuit on, he'd be good to go. We'll leave his head peeking out a little bit.
Yeah, good plan. Yeah.
All right, so this next one is a little more interesting. It is footwork. And now the reason I just have footwork is that's not really a tool. I don't know how you would go about training footwork specifically, if there is a tool for it. And then also I was going to bring up, since you have a course that you've released, and I think it's reopening right now, right, for like the year?
Yeah, just at the end of this month, at the end of July, it'll reopen. and then it'll just
Yeah,
be
and I know
open
you
going forward.
love footwork, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, my course, it's on altitude climbing, and my course is about climbing technique in general. So it's about the whole of climbing technique, but I mean, I can't remember how long it is. It's something like 8 hours of video or something like that. But the bulk of it is speaking about footwork. I mean, I think like movement technique in climbing, and therefore climbing in general, is very much led by footwork. No matter the angle, no matter the rock type of climbing, whatever, footwork is like number one, and it dictates how the rest of your body moves. So yeah, it's extremely important, and you definitely can train it, and definitely should. If you go on YouTube and you just type like climbing footwork into the search bar, I haven't done that actually, I need to do it, but I have seen a lot of technique videos where people think about slab climbing to learn footwork. And slab climbing is a great way to learn footwork. I'm a trad climber, so I've spent a lot of time teetering around on small edges on slabs, and it is very important to do that. But footwork covers all angles, and it's important to train at all the different angles, and just as many rock features as you can. And to be honest, like, in 20, 30 years of climbing, you'll still learn new ways to use your feet all the time. It's kind of amazing. Yeah. And there's some things that you can't learn in a textbook. So in my course, I think the core of it is very simple. The how to learn technique is about experimentation. It's about, like, you've got a set of moves in front of you, whether that's on a route, but ideally on a boulder problem. Bouldering itself, I suppose, is the best training tool, because you've got an accessible series of moves in front of you that you can easily try again and again. Even if you succeed, you can still do it again and see if you can do it a little bit better, as in to make it feel a little bit easier. And that's how the structure of learning technique, you hang it all around that, of like experimenting. If I put my foot that way, or if I use that foot sequence, or if I apply that much pressure through the foot, or in that direction, does that make this move feel easier or harder? That's the core of technique. And all you're really doing is just doing that in as many scenarios as you can, and repeating it and refining it just on a constant basis. So the important thing for all climbers to keep in mind, I think, anytime they climb any move, is to try and not be passive about their climbing. Just to think, I sent that move, great, forget about it, it's behind me. Always asking the question, why did that work? Why did that attempt or feel easier or harder than the previous one?
Oh, so by don't be passive, you mean like really think about it, like don't just let the moment pass, like actually think about what's happening and apply it, as opposed to...
Every move you do is an experiment of, like, you judged how to move or position or move your body in a certain way to get from one hold to the other. And you run an experiment, and you've got this feedback of whether the move worked or not, but you've also got a deeper layer of feedback of how easy did the move feel. And then you're always thinking, is there an easier way? Is there an easier way? So you're always testing to find if there's an easier way. And if something felt easier, you really need to know why. So you're trying to get feedback by doing the move slightly differently, and that helps you to deduce what it was about the way that you did it that felt easier, that worked, and then you can figure out like why that was, like whether you hooked the toe a bit down into the foothold a bit more forcefully, or you turned your knee in just slightly, and that helped you to apply more force on the hold, or whether you were applying too much force on the hold and then therefore it slipped, or any combination of those things.
So then we would put, I guess as a training tool to like train footwork.
Yeah, well, I almost didn't anticipate that you would focus on a technical aspect as a training tool, if you like. So that has actually got to bump fingerboarding off its top spot as being definitely more important.
That makes sense. I thought you were gonna put it up there with it, but it would make sense that if you had to have one without the other, you can't survive without this. Ah, yes. Weightlifting.
Weightlifting, yeah, good picture.
Yeah. I got really into the AI. I typed in, just so you know, the AI is a little racist. I just said strong Scottish man weightlifting. I did not tell it to put a kilt on.
Yeah, it's mandatory to dress like that when you go to a gym in Scotland.
Yeah. I was surprised. I was thinking about doing that, but the AI was like, I got you. I know what you're trying to ask for.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, no, weightlifting is an excellent training tool as well. Very useful, and can be more useful for some than for others. And it also depends on what level you're at. I mean, I think as you approach really high levels in climbing, everyone is going to need to do some basic body strength training of some sort. Again, I don't think you need absolutely to do it with weights.
Okay.
Like, I don't tend to go to the weights gym myself. I tend to use bodyweight exercises on the rings to cover a lot of it. And, a few quite simple exercises on the rings will do so much.
Really? Wait, so you're talking about like the gymnast ring, like hanging off the ceiling?
Yeah. I mean,
interesting. Okay, that's new. I've not heard anyone in climbing like talk about training with those. Like for like at least like as a, I don't know. Outside, I always see it as like a side fun thing, not like a training tool for climbing.
Yeah, I mean, if you can do like, a muscle up, skin the cat, front lever, 100 pull-ups, one arm pull-ups, Superman, Spider-Man's, like, that's just a few simple, mostly upper body, obviously, but
yeah.
But they're excellent exercises for having stability and strength right through from your core right through your shoulders and your arms. So they're excellent exercises. With rings, you just have to be careful with the form. Like, everyone always overreaches what they can do. Like, they're just like, all right, I'm going to try a front lever. So they just try a proper full front lever when they're nowhere near strong enough to do it.
That's me. Yeah, I do that shit all the time.
So you just don't do that. You just like try just hanging, and then tuck your legs up, and then pull yourself, keep your arms locked straight, and just try and pull your trunk up until your trunk becomes horizontal with your legs fully tucked in. And most reasonably fit guys will be able to do that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and if you can't do that, then just actually just rocking your lower trunk up and then coming back down and just building up from where you are.
One thing that's helped me a bit is doing the half lever. Right, we just have the one knee bent, and the difference, I can't even get close to a front lever, but I can hold a half lever like all day. It just feels so much easier. And I think open lever is a little bit harder, where you do the front lever but you spread your legs, and I can kind of do that like for a second. But yeah, I've always wanted to do one, but I always have excuses ready because like I'm too tall. That's my go-to.
So the great advantage with rings is that you don't need any other equipment. You just need the rings, and you can put them anywhere. You can hang them from a tree, you can hang them from your ceiling, from a rafter or anything.
Okay.
So they're quite
so
easy to set up. So
if we were adding rings, like, and I can add those in post-production a little.
Let's put them in B, because I do think they're still a great training tool, and a lot of people would benefit from doing more. Especially if you start to figure out, I've got a specific strength deficit somewhere that I could really do with improving. Like, I've coached some climbers where they're actually like reasonably good in their movement, but they just they can't do one pull-up, and so they actually can't stay on the wall long enough to learn technique because they just can't do enough moves. And so sometimes you find yourself saying, you just start getting to the gym and just get some strength together to the point where you can do like 3 pull-ups, 5 pull-ups, and then you'll actually just be able to handle more climbing, and that'll just be a really big advantage.
So this one, training apps.
That's a good one. Yeah. So, what's like? Do you think there's a problem with training apps, or do you have any thoughts on them yourself?
I'm sponsored by a training app, so I'm not saying anything. I was gonna say, I assumed your response to them would be kind of similar to almost like the plant protein thing, where it's like it depends on the person. If you're somebody who kind of knows what you want to do and just wants to go in the gym and do it, at least I'm basically just saying my opinion, but pretending you're saying it so I don't get in trouble. But Yeah, it's like if you can go in the gym and just do what you want to do and you're good to go, like you don't need the app's not going to make you better really or anything. But if you're like me, for instance, like I want to be able to go in and just kind of have the list and the timer set and just kind of check off each thing and then be done a lot of the time. So for me, they work really well, and I do enjoy the app quite a bit because I just Emil has his thing that I just copy pasted. And,
Yeah. So
did, but
so my answer would be, yeah, if similar to what you just said, if it helps, then it helps. So if it helps you to do the training, complete the training, then it's useful. If it helps you to shift a habit, like do something differently to how you would tend to do it, and that means your training is more effective, then great, it's beneficial. My issue with them is like not so much the idea of an app itself, it's more what the content of that training that it's directing you to do. It's only ever as good as the training it's telling you to do.
That's a very fair point.
Yeah, and you know your ability to train is changing on a daily, if not hourly basis, and the training program is not necessarily reflecting that. So, like, I change my training on the hoof constantly, where I warm up and I think, yeah, actually that session I had the day before yesterday was actually quite hard, and so I was going to do this, this, and this, and this, but now that I'm warming up, I think I'll just do this and this and then stop.
Okay.
And then sometimes it's the opposite. I warm up and I just think, well, I thought I was going to feel tired, but actually I feel amazing, and so I'm just going to go for it. If you just have like an off-the-shelf training plan, then it's not really sensitive to your level, your strengths and weaknesses. It's just as likely to introduce error in your training as it is to introduce useful content. So I'm very wary of the content of training programs. It's very easy to look at an app that gives you a training program, and you're like, oh my god, like that's a lot of training, that's a lot of activities. I don't know if I can do that. And then you try to do it, and then you just get injured, or you don't respond. It's too much, and you can't recover from it. Or it's the opposite. It's too little. But there's no feedback mechanism there. That's why.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, if I wanted to get coaching, especially if I want to pay for coaching, I would always favour having a good experienced coach in front of me, climbing with me.
Yeah, I mean that's like pro like that's how when you're like younger, if you go pro, a lot of times they have a dedicated coach or something. You can't beat that. I feel like. But,
even having that once ever or once a year is better. I would think is more likely to be better than like paying for some subscription.
Yeah, it's like I was telling you, I was with Emil for 6 days. I think him and Eric, we were just hanging out in Font, and in those 6 days, my knowledge doubled. But it's not just climbing knowledge; it's climbing knowledge about me, which is the big thing. Where it's like these are the things you need to work on. This is something you do wrong. This is something you're bad at, and it's really important because it's stuff I never probably would have picked up on, and it would have slowly got better anyway, but it would have always been behind, and now I can jump it up to catch up to all my other stuff. Guess then that you're probably put it somewhere around the same thing where it's like, if you want to do it.
Well, there's quite a big space there under campus boarding, and there's nothing there. Let's put it right under campus boarding.
Ooh. That's all.